Greetings, everyone. My name is Quincy Anderson, and our group will be presenting a critical review of the articles Humanity's Favorite Food: How to End the Livestock Industry but Keep Eating Meat. This presentation will be presented by members of Group 11, myself, Mr. Mortaz Mohammed, and Ms. Shaniza Nabi. This review will examine the article's main argument, evaluate its strengths and weaknesses, and provide possible recommendations for improvement. I will now dive into the introduction of the article. Now, the article titled Humanity's Favorite Food: How to End the Livestock Industry but Keep Eating Meat is a news article written by Damian Carrington, an environment editor at The Guardian. It was first published in the news column of The Guardian website on January the 31st, 2026, and later modified on February the 14th, 2026. The article possesses questions about the future of meat production, considering issues of climate change, environmental destruction, and food security. Now, the article explains and summarizes Bruce Frederick's book, Meat, and his vision to create cultivated and plant-based protein sources that will satisfy people while reducing reliance on animal agriculture. While the information is very informative and persuasive, engaging, and thought-provoking, the article's optimistic bias and one-sided approach highlights the need for further, broader research for more comprehensive understanding of the issue. I now will call on my colleague, Mr. Mohammed, to present the summary and evaluate the article's strength. Mr. Mohammed, the floor is yours, sir.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Mortaz Mohammed, and I will present the summary and evaluate the strengths of the article. The main ideas of the article are meat consumption rising, hard to reduce intake, alternatives, cultivated and plant-based meat, benefits, emissions, health, and security, needs, technology, and government support. The article begins by highlighting the global meat consumption is still rising, and a decline seems very challenging. Frederick knows that meat is ingrained in our culture. Its condemnation is less likely than a shift in people's diet, suggesting the delivery of alternative proteins such as cultivated and plant-based proteins present a way forward to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and address food security and health risks. But this is going to require technological innovation and a push by governments. The article positions cultivated and plant-based proteins against other commodities in the global economy and safety considerations, highlighting investments from Israel, China, and Singapore. The strengths of the article: easy to follow. The article does a good job of turning Frederick's complex ideas into clear, engaging language for everyday readers. For example, it explains that making 1 calorie of beef can take up to 100 calories of crops, which makes the inefficiency easy to understand. It covers many angles. It looks at environmental issues like methane and deforestation, health concerns like antibiotic resistance and pandemic risks, economic impact, trillions in possible output, and security countries like China, Israel, and Singapore investing in food independence, showing how wide-reaching the topic is. Relatable comparisons. By likening alternative proteins to electric cars and smartphones, the article makes the shift in technology feel familiar and convincing. Fear but one Fear but leaning one way. It mentions criticism such as cultural resistance, the yuck factor of lab-grown meat, and worries about corporate motives like ultra-processed foods. But Frederick's counterarguments about nutrition and safety end up dominating the story. The article succeeds in making Frederick's complex argument accessible, translating them into clear and engaging language for a general audience. For instance, showing how producing 1 calorie of beef can require up to 100 calories of crops, a striking way to highlight the inefficiency. It also covers the issue from multiple angles, weaving together environmental concerns like methane emissions and deforestation, health risks such as antibiotic resistance and pandemics, economic potential worth trillions, and even national security considerations with countries like China, Israel, and Singapore investing in food independence. Relatable comparisons to electric cars and smartphones further strengthen the case, making the technological shift feel familiar and persuasive. At the same time, while the article acknowledges criticism, such as cultural resistance to cultivated meat and worries about corporate motives tied to ultra-processed food, Frederick's counterarguments on nutrition and safety dominate the narrative, leaving the piece balanced in tone but ultimately tilted towards his perspective. I will now hand you over to my colleague, Ms. Shazina Nabi, who will be presenting the weaknesses of the article and concluding the article.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. My name is Ms. Shazina Nabi, and I will present the evaluation of the article's weaknesses and conclude this review. There are several weaknesses of this article, and these are bias optimism, limited evidence for predictions, corporate motives overlooked, and developing economies ignored. The first point, bias optimism. The article comes across as overly optimistic, leaning heavily on Friedrich's belief that alternative proteins will capture 50% of the market by 2050, while downplaying cultural and psychological barriers to adoption. The second point, limited evidence for predictions. Although it mentions criticisms, it doesn't probe them deeply. For instance, the yuck factor is acknowledged but not explored with consumer data or psychological insights, leaving important questions about behavior and political will unanswered. The third point, corporate motives overlooked. The corporate dimension is also treated lightly. While the piece notes meat companies' investments in alternatives, It avoids examining their history of resisting sustainability reforms or the possibility that these efforts are more about appearances than real change. And the final point, developing economies ignore. The analysis feels narrow because it centers almost entirely on Friedrich's perspective, with little input from other experts, policymakers, or consumers, which limits the diversity of voices and weakens the overall balance. In conclusion, the article provides a compelling overview of Friedrich's vision for alternative proteins as a solution to the environmental health and security challenges posed by industrial livestock farming. Its strengths lie in making complexities accessible and situating them within global technological trends. However, its weaknesses stem from limited critical distance and over-reliance on Friedrich's perspective. In general, the article is an informative and persuasive piece of explanatory journalism, though it should be supplemented with Friedrich's book, Meat, and broader scholarly and policy analysis for a greater understanding. Thank you. I now invite Mr. Anderson to present the references used for this review.
Greetings once again, everyone. I am Quincy Anderson, and on behalf of our group, we close this presentation with a list below of references used in the preparation of this critical review. I once again thank you for your time and thank you for your attention. Our group hereby conclude our presentation. I hope it was informative. Again, thank you.